How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. Today we have a very special video because we have our very first Q&A video as well as the winner announcements for that 4,000 subscriber giveaway. We got all of these 4 decks here to give away. Winners will be announced near the end of the video, but the main chunk of the video is going to be this Q&A. A lot of folks asked me a lot of questions actually in that 4K giveaway video, so we're gonna answer most of them, if not all of them. I have a bunch of papers here, and we're just kind of try to go through these as much as we can and see how long this is gonna be. I have no idea how long this is gonna be. I do know some of these are gonna be pretty easy questions, like yes or no kind of deals, and some of them are gonna be a little bit more involved, and some of them are gonna be reserved for future videos because they require a full video. I think they deserve a full video, so yeah, dude, let's just get started. This is gonna be very interesting. This is gonna be very interesting. So the first question, not really a question. It says, your mustache has come a long way in the past 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, dude, I actually had a pretty magnificent mustache and beard combo pre-COVID, and I'm kind of getting back to my pre-COVID glory. If I remember right, I'll put a picture of myself pre-COVID up here. I used to joke that I looked like a character from Red Dead Redemption. Don't I look like a character from Red Dead Redemption? I'm cool with that. I think those games are great. I could definitely be one of like Dutch's gang or whatever. Anyway, next question, at least the very first actual question. It says, I'd love to hear your perspective or method on selecting pitch values and how it varies between cards depending on what you want that card to do for you. I imagine that it would be a whole video though. So yeah, I could actually spend a whole video on this, but I'll give you the quick and dirty here. Basically, you want the pitch value to go with the theme of your deck, and certain heroes actually do better with higher pitch than others. So for example, Kano the Wizard is a very, very classic, really high pitch deck. You want a lot of blues and a lot of reds. And the same is true for Bravo actually, because you want the blues to actually use for resources and the reds to use for their effects. And typically it's gonna be like pretty heavily weighted on the blues because, you know, for Kano, for example, you really want to use his hero ability almost every single turn. So you really need that 3 pitch. Other heroes like Dorinthia or Azalea, for example, really do well with low curve red pitch style decks because most of the cards cost only like 1 to play. So you can kind of like factor that into your equation. What is the average cost of the cards that you actually want to play? And then you can kind of factor how much pitch you can have based on that. You can also think more in terms of like, how much pitch do you need a turn to be successful? So like for my Dorinthia deck, for example, I found that like 2 pitch, maybe 2 to 3 pitch is really the sweet spot because that gives you enough to attack with your weapon and then pump it a couple times. I hope that helps a little bit. I will go into that in more detail in the future, like a whole video, I think. I think a whole video would be good for that one. Next question, you should convince someone at Flesh and Blood to do an interview about the future. It would also to hear all interview with owner of FAB Foundry talking about his history and thoughts of the state of the game. So this is basically asking me if I would like to do interviews with people in the future, people like FAB Foundry or people from Legend Story Studios. Yeah, dude, I would love to do that. In fact, I didn't actually think about setting up an interview with Onnit from FAB Foundry, but dude, if you're watching this and you'd like to do like an interview collab thing, hit me up, man. I think that could be really cool. And I've already gone on record before saying I would love to talk with some folks from Legend Story Studios. Maybe someday I can set up an interview with James White and we can just talk about Flesh and Blood and just card games in general, man. I think that'd be really, really cool. I love card games. I'm super passionate about card games, and I think it'd be very interesting talking to someone also very, very passionate about card games. So yeah, maybe. Do the unlimited releases hold any value for the rare cards, Fabled and Legendary, or will the value drop significantly as more cards are printed? That's very tricky, honestly. So currently right now, unlimited values are rising, but that's just because there's not enough supply in the market. However, I strongly believe that there will be more supply in the market very, very shortly. And so this video is currently filmed at the end of 2020, December 2020. Going forward in 2021, in January, February, March, I really feel that there's gonna be more waves of unlimited Arcane Rising and Welcome to Wraith, and I think the prices will go back down and stabilize a little bit. If you are a Flesh and Blood player who's been around since the beginning, you will know that legendaries were originally, even the cold foil first edition legendaries were originally around $100, except for the tunic or the Fandel Spring Tunic, which is around $300. Every other one was around $100, and I think that's probably going to be the sweet spot for most legendaries. For the rest of the rares and majestics, Rares are never gonna really hold that much value because they're so plentiful. Majestics, maybe. They're typically between like, I don't know, like 5 to 40, 50 bucks, depending on how often it's played, and if it's like a generic that's played in a lot of decks. So for unlimited, in the long run, like super long run, like 5 years down the road, I think the current ones will be the whole value, but currently I think they're gonna go down a little bit once we get the next couple waves of unlimited. Brand new player trying to get into the game, what do you think is the top couple of mistakes new players make when they first start playing Flesh and Blood? There's a couple of mistakes that I see a lot of people making. One of them is people overblock, like all the time. They just block their whole hand every single turn. And if that's what your deck wants to do, then do it. But man, a lot of decks don't optimally function that way. A lot of the times you want to block just enough to swing back and hit your opponent and have a pretty good turn. So when you're deciding to block, always calculate like, okay, if I block with this, what can I do on my next turn, and plan out your next turn, like plan out your response. Because that way it'll set you up for success in the future. And that's true for like a lot of card games, you know. It's really good card game players can really plan out the next couple turns and be like, okay, if this happens, then I can do this, or if they do this, then I can do this. It's always best to prepare for like the worst scenario. Don't get stuck in Magical Christmas Land where you're like, oh, if everything goes right for me, I could win. It's usually not going to go that way. Preparing for the worst is typically good. I would also say do not underestimate your weapon. Your weapon is a very, very integral part to your deck, and a lot of heroes can get by just, you know, cracking with their weapon. Even if they have to block a really big block, you can just crack back with your weapon, especially Ninja. Ninja's weapons are so good. Getting a couple quick Kodachi hits at the start of your turn is fantastic. Like Kodachi hit, and then follow it up with a couple attacks. That's a really, really solid turn for Ninja. I'm curious, I know FAB came out in early 2019. I'm wondering what month you got into it, and since it used to be so incredibly hard to find, how were you able to get a hold of the game? So I actually heard about Flesh and Blood in 2019. Some fellow content creators, TCG Scrubs, did a couple videos on it, and I saw them and I was like, yo, I'm immediately interested, and I actually contacted Legend Story Studios, and it took them a little while, but they sent me some product, and I didn't get it until around March. And so that's basically when I got into Flesh and Blood, was around March of 2020. And there were a couple stores around the US that kind of carried it. Most didn't. It was actually really hard to find, but a couple did, and I was able to get product from them. Even in the early days, Reaper Game Store had cases of Arcane Rising when Arcane Rising First Edition came out back in like around March. And so I bought from Reaper Game Store, and a couple local stores for me also carried it. So I was kind of fortunate that I was able to find stores that carried it pretty quickly, and you know, bought up a bunch of stuff, including a bunch of Welcome to Wraith. Welcome to Wraith was particularly hard to find, but I did get some from like eBay and that kind of stuff. In fact, the box that I bought from eBay, the very first box that I bought from eBay had a Fiendel Spring Tunic in it. So my Alpha Cold Foil Fiendel Spring Tunic is from a random box on eBay. Are you ready for Monarch? Yes. Give me the Monarch. I'm so stoked for Monarch, man. I have a lot of stuff planned. Some things that I'm gonna talk about later in this Q&A. I don't want to mention it here, but I got some stuff planned for Monarch, and you know, I'm gonna do coverage of the set and a lot of openings and deck techs and all that good stuff, man. I am super stoked for Monarch. What do you think would be the heroes for Monarch? I'm gonna answer that in a different video. Spoilers, I think they're gonna be all new heroes. I think they're gonna be all entirely new heroes, and probably entirely new classes too. But I'm gonna do an entirely new video on what I think about that. Maybe collaboration with another YouTuber. So keep a lookout for that in the next couple weeks. Moving forward, will you still cover indie CCG projects? Yes, I will. I love indie CCGs, card games, board games, all that kind of stuff. I backed a bunch of Kickstarters, so I'll be doing videos on those whenever I get them, as well as Lion Wing Studios, who did Gun and Gun. They're going to be sending me a prototype for their next game, and I'm going to be doing a video on that one too. And I think it's really cool. It's not a CCG. It's more like a board game, but it's a mech board game, which looks really cool. It does use cards too. You have like a deck of cards for your mechs skills. And if you're into Gundam, I loved Gundam as a kid. One of these little anime figures in the back is a Gundam character. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked for that. So yeah, of course. I would like to know what you're asking from FAB. What would you like for its future, basically? Like some expansions, like other games with new keywords, competitions. I would love to see organized play. I mean, I know that they're really focused on organized play, so, you know, just gotta wait until the pandemic's over and we can actually get out and do organized play. I'm really excited for that in the US. I fully intend on attending local events, but as well as maybe national events. Oh man, that would be so cool. I don't know if they'd allow my camera in there, but I'd love to film it and kind of like, oh man, I'm really excited for that kind of stuff. What would I like for the future? I think it's already been basically confirmed that they're going to be trying to hit 3 sets a year, which is not my big thing. I really wanted 3 sets a year. I think that's the perfect number. So you don't have wallet fatigue, but people are still really interested in new product. So yeah, 3 sets a year. And I'd love to see new heroes for existing classes and, you know, new classes. Not too many new classes, but I'd love to see some new classes. Yeah. Just stable, consistent releases, not too many products, not too many like fancy products. Some would be cool, but not a lot. I mean, I want it to be very stable and consistent. Oh, the one thing I really would like to see, I'd love to see tournament decks. So like say Monarch came out, and I know they're coming out with the Blitz decks, but it'd be really cool if they put like tournament decks. And what a tournament deck is, it's basically like some random rares and then random commons and that kind of stuff in a little deck, and you were supposed to be playing with these in like a sealed event. This is what Magic the Gathering used to do, and I loved those things, man. I'd usually buy those instead of booster packs as a kid. I'd save up like $10 and go buy my little $10 tournament deck, which is basically the value of like 3 booster packs. Those are cool. I don't think they'll ever do those because they're kind of like outdated, but I really like those. In your opinion, who is the best character to start learning the game with? I honestly think Dorinthia is probably the best character to start learning the game with. Any of the original 4 Welcome to Wraith heroes are fantastic, but Dorinthia in particular teaches you how to use attack reactions, defense reactions, just regular actions, attacking with your weapon. If you know how to play Dorinthia, you kind of know how to do almost everything, and I think that's very important. Especially Dorinthia, you need to use her equipment quite well as well. I know I said that kind of weird, but I think Dorinthia is probably the best one. She's also very good too. So she's really easy to pick up and kind of like hard to master, but very good. And she has like kind of all of the base mechanics kind of like wrapped up in her. So Dorinthia, I would say. What do you think is the best way to find competitive deck lists or competitive list discussions? That one's very hard right now. There's not a ton of resources available. I do like the Session Blood podcast. They kind of just play with decks, but they don't really have just like, here's a bunch of lists. I would go to the Flesh and Blood website, fabtcg.com, and there's a section there under events where you can see all of the competitive deck lists. Yep, just go to fabtcg.com. They have all of the competitive deck lists just on their website, so you can see what all of them are. That's what I usually use. I kind of look there and kind of scour the list and see what the competitive players are doing, and then I kind of brew my own decks from there. I'm looking to build Brute in Blitz. Which hero would you suggest running? KO. KO is awesome. I love the random mechanics. Sometimes you win with really big and do a huge hit, and sometimes it's like wah, wah. If you want to be more consistent, Reinhardt, but I think KO is really sweet. This next one is actually a question about our playmat that I'm designing with the artist who did the channel avatar. It says, cannot wait to see the design Lizzie and you came out with. Will you be selling them, correct? Or you will be selling them, correct? Yes, I will be. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to be selling them. If it's going to be through Inked Gaming or going to be through like a Patreon thing. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll have more news about that once we finish the design. It's going to be really sweet. I'm going to have the playmat, and we're going to have like one that's just a playmat and one that has like the Flesh and Blood, zones and that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be really sweet. Will you ever do viewer paid case breaks? I think they're super fun, but hard to find. That's not something I really thought about too much. Maybe if people really want to, maybe if I can offer something of value, then I might, consider it. But I mean, honestly, most of the Flesh and Blood product I buy, other than what goes to patrons, because I buy boxes specifically for patrons. They get stuff from a specific box that's like untouched, crack it open, and they just go to the patrons. But like sponsored box openings or case breaks, I'm not sure, man. Maybe. I'm going to give that a solid maybe. I already know that Fab Foundry does that. And it looks like Rudy from Alpha Investments is doing something similar. So I don't even know if people would like to do it, to see it from me. But yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see something like that. Is there anything the community can do to help Flesh and Blood grow? And what do you think of collectors buying out large amounts of first edition booster boxes to store long term as a player? I'm actually a big player. I'm a collector too. I love having my collection, but I'm not an investor. I do not intend on selling any of the stuff that I buy and collect, unless I'm gonna do like a trade or something like that for other Flesh and Blood products. So what I think about people like buying out first edition printings and all that kind of stuff, you know, I'm not super bothered by it. It's gonna happen. I mean, I've played a lot of card games, so you see this in like every card game. It's just part of collectible card games. If something's collectible and has value, people will buy it up. People with a lot of money will spend their money to make investments on what they believe is gonna be investable. So the fact that they're doing this is actually a good sign. It means that people believe that the game is gonna be investable and go up in value. It's kind of a bummer for people who wanted to get the product, but it's the first edition product, so it's not that big of a deal. It does mean that if you want first edition product, you should probably buy it when it comes out. Like Monarch, if you want cold foils from Monarch, you should buy Monarch when it comes out, and not wait around. I think they're gonna have a pretty big print run for Monarch. I don't have any, you know, insider knowledge or anything, but I imagine the print run will be pretty big for Monarch. But yeah, I'm not super bothered by it. It's very interesting to see and interesting to follow, but it's not like my thing. You know, I'm more of a collector, less of an investor kind of person, you know. What was your entrance to TCGs? Could you tell us a little bit about your path into all of these card games? I actually went into a pretty long length in this in my Who I Am video, so I would definitely check that video out. Long story short, for the sake of time, because I can see this is already going pretty long, Magic the Gathering 1995. But if you want to know more about that, I go into like the history of all of the card games that I played growing up, which was a lot, man, a lot of card games. You know, everything from Legend of the Five Rings to Warlord, Saga of the Storm to Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, check out that video for a very in-depth explanation of all of that. I think it's a really fun video, and it kind of tells you more about like who I am as a person and as a like game player. What is your favorite mechanic? I love the pitch mechanic for Flesh and Blood. The fact that it goes on the bottom of your deck is so sweet, because you can actually pitch cards that you want to use late game, and then they go on the bottom of your deck and you'll get them late game. So pitching cards that you want to save for the end is a very, very good, like, you know, intermediate strategy. Pitch cards that you think are really good that you need to use late game and you don't want to burn early game, so you can draw them late game. So yeah, pitch I think is a fantastic resource. It also makes it so every card is a resource, so you don't have like the mana screw problem that Magic the Gathering has. I think some other games have done stuff like this too, like Force of Will has like a separate deck, which is a little bit more complicated. I like everything being in your one single deck, and it also means every card has value if it has pitch, because you can always pitch it. It makes it so you have very, very few dead hands if you build your deck appropriately. Almost kind of reminds me of the old World of Warcraft TCG in that kind of way, because in that game you could put any card down as a resource. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Second page, second of 2 pages, well, 3 pages. Maybe in the future, videos about budget decks for new players. Yes, yes, I will be doing that in the future, budget decks for new players. I kind of want to feature like the top end of Flesh and Blood right now, so you can see, so new players can see like this is like the top of the threshold, or really janky like fun brews like one deck that I have coming up in a few weeks. But yeah, budget decks are definitely a list, and there's already some other YouTubers out there doing that, and I would highly recommend checking those folks out. I don't remember how to say his name off the top of my head. It's like Ravwen, something like that. Yeah, check that out. If you're watching the video, comment down below, share your channel, and folks can watch your budget deck builds. I think they're really good. As for a question, what hero would you recommend for someone who enjoys control decks? I would say Bravo. Probably Bravo, or maybe even a Rune Blade. So Bravo if you want to win a lot. Viserai if you like a challenge. Viserai is currently my absolute favorite hero. I love Viserai. It's my favorite control deck. But realistically speaking, Bravo is probably a little bit better and probably wins a lot more. But I'd say either Bravo or Viserai. They lend themselves to very slow, grindy matchups. You can kind of build them fast too if you want to, but I think they excel in very slow, controlling, grindy style games. What is your favorite Flesh and Blood set? That's very hard. Probably Arcane Rising, because it's the set that I went really, really deep into when I first started playing Flesh and Blood, because I got my starter decks and I got my Alpha Welcome to Wraith booster box, and that was really fun, and I did a deck in a box, and then Arcane Rising came out like right after, and I went super deep into Arcane Rising. So I would say Arcane Rising. Also has some really sweet cards in it. It's got the Eye of Ophidia, which I still don't have. It's got a Command and Conquer. It's got some really sweet stuff, and Viserai, my favorite hero. Your personal decks seem to be very strong. Are there other players of that level in your area? Actually, on it from Fab Foundry, lives in my area and we've played some games, and he also has very, very strong decks. So yes, there are other people with very tuned decks in my area. Honestly, I think the area that I live in, the Portland, Oregon area, is going to be a hotspot for Flesh and Blood going forward. We kind of already had a community here, like before the game got big, back in like Arcane Rising area. We had our PDX Flesh and Blood Facebook group. So I think the Portland, Oregon area is going to be a really sweet hotspot for Flesh and Blood in the US. What is your favorite cold foil card that you own? You know, your most priced cold foil that is special to you. So I would have said before December, probably my Fandel Spring Tunic. It was the first like really big pull that I got. I mean, other than that foil Enlightened Strike that I pulled from that alpha box. But since December came around, my most like prized card is that cold foil Viserai that Legend Story Studios sent me. I know they sent it to a lot of other content creators, or content creators got a lot of other stuff, but Viserai is my favorite hero, and the fact that they sent it to me and they knew that it was my favorite hero, or at least one of my favorite heroes, it means a lot. And the card's still like really valuable, but that's something, once again, I'm never gonna trade or sell that thing. Like, yeah, it means a lot to me. Who is your favorite hero? Viserai, and maybe Dorinthia. It's pretty close, but I'm gonna say Viserai. Do you ever think you'll visit the Southern Hemisphere to play some games of Flesh and Blood? I would love to. I would love to go to Australia or New Zealand to play Flesh and Blood. Man, that'd be so cool. Oh man, it's kind of like one of my, low-key, it's one of my dreams to like win enough tournaments to get invited to a Flesh and Blood event in New Zealand. That would be amazing. So I would love to. Do you plan on doing some lore videos? This is kind of what I alluded to when I talked about Monarch earlier. Yes, I would love to do lore videos, and I do have some planned. They're gonna take more time, and I've tried already doing some voice acting for them, and it's really bad, so I need to get better at that. So I would love to do lore videos, but I want them to be up to my standards, and I want them to sound good. So yeah, I mean, I was actually, long story short, I was actually a film major in college, so I think I can do some cool stuff. So we'll see. I don't have a lot of editing skills. I'm more like a storyboard and like a movie history kind of guy, but yeah, I'd love to do some lore videos. Flesh and Blood has some excellent lore. Is there a suitable replacement for Enlightened Strike or Command and Conquer? Honestly, not really. I mean, you don't need the cards to win, but they are unique in that no other card really does what they do. Enlightened Strike just has so much versatility, and Command and Conquer is just so hard to defend against, and it does a unique effect currently where it destroys cards in your opponent's arsenal. No other card does that. So basically, not really. Do you need them to win games? No, you don't need them to win games, but they'll help, especially in certain decks. Who's your favorite hero to play with now? What do you think Monarch will bring as far as gameplay for Flesh and Blood? I've kind of already answered a little bit of this. Dorinthia and Viserai. Dorinthia for my more aggro-y style matchups. If I want to play aggro, I play Dorinthia, and Viserai if I want to play more of a control style thing. For Monarch, that's really hard to say. I know they've alluded to some very interesting stuff, especially that has to do with pitch. I suspect we might see some graveyard shenanigans. I don't want to get too much into that because I'm going to do this in a future video, but maybe some graveyard shenanigans or pitch shenanigans, maybe playing cards from pitch or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Which do you think is better, Runeblade or Wizard? Well, you know I love Viserai, so a little bias here. Am I a combo or control player in MTG? What hero would fit my game style? I would say if you're a combo or control player, Wizard is more combo, Runeblade is more control, I would say. Also, Ninja is super combo. I mean, they have literally the combo mechanic, but it really feels like Storm from Magic, where you just play card after card after card and like kind of combo into them. So, yeah, I would say Ninja or Kano for combo, Viserai or what's his face? Bravo for control. I'm looking to create content for this game too. Any tips or advice? Just do it, man. Just do it and just get the reps in. You'll get better as you go. If you wanted more like concrete advice, get good audio, get a good camera. I mean, that's kind of like generic stuff. There's a lot of like how-to vlog videos on YouTube. I would definitely take their advice into consideration. Lighting is very important. I almost always use 3-point lighting. So I have a light up here, a light over there, and a light behind me. The light behind me is just a regular lamp, but I actually have like tripod lights in front of me. So I would say all that kind of stuff. As far as content, if you're really good at speaking publicly, that's a really good plus. But if you're not, then it's something that you might have to get into. or just kind of get more acclimated to. Also, winging it. Learning to wing it is very, very important. As I kind of mess up that sentence and wing it myself. It's very important because it can create more organic and really fun content too, especially when you're doing box openings. If you can just kind of like ramble or chat about stuff while you're opening boxes, it makes it a little more interesting in my opinion. So, yeah, I guess those are my suggestions. They're not great suggestions, but man, just do it. Even if you have like just a phone, just go for it, man. What's your favorite art in Flesh and Blood? This is gonna be an entire video. I wanna do an entire video on art in Flesh and Blood, or maybe multiple videos on art in Flesh and Blood. Currently, I don't know, man. I don't know. I really like the Steve Argyle Viscerai art. Like I said, I like Viscerai. I also love the art in Enlightened Strike. It's very like mystical, and you're like, yo, what is this character? They look like some sort of Titan or very Olympian style character. Fiendel Spring Tunic is beautiful. There's a lot of fantastic art. Oh, Moon Kiss and Sun Wish and Moon Kiss. Those are also fantastic artworks. So there's a lot of great stuff in Flesh and Blood. That'll be a full video. What card game have you always wanted to get into but just haven't pulled the trigger on yet? Basically none. If I see a card game and I want to play it, I buy it. I'll buy like some starters or boosters or something to just check it out. And if I like it, then I'll go into it more. More recently, the Digimon TCG. I actually pre-ordered a ton of Digimon TCG, but canceled my pre-orders because I was like, you know what? I'm gonna focus a little more on Flesh and Blood and less on like a bunch of random stuff. So maybe the Digimon game, but usually if there's something that I like, I just get it. Was wondering if you are perhaps going to start Tabletop Simulator Flesh and Blood TCG gameplay. Maybe. I've thought about it a lot. I think I can get it recorded really well because I recorded Genshin Impact using my laptop, so I can definitely record Tabletop Simulator. Maybe. I'm not a big fan of Tabletop Simulator. Wait, let me hold it back. Roll it back. I do like Tabletop Simulator, but I would really, really rather play Flesh and Blood in the Flesh and Blood. If it's gonna be like another year of not being able to do that, then I might. But I would love to get live gameplay in. That's my goal. For gameplay, I would love to get live gameplay in. If I have to do like Tabletop Simulator, then, you know, I have to do Tabletop Simulator. So yeah, I would also love to do some Ultimate Pit Fight stuff. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that there. Love to do some Ultimate Pit Fight stuff. Okay, this is a really long one. I run the organized play for the Oklahoma board game community and have organized their card games for years. But although we'd like to make this one of our staple games, we've really seen a struggle for any of our local FLGs to get product. Do you think this is a temporary issue based on your experience so far with Flesh and Blood? Also, if your local area has low levels of product, what do you suggest as the best way to keep new players interested and incentivized in the game while we are all building collections? That was really tricky. I know a lot of local game stores are very hesitant to cover Flesh and Blood, but if they do want to cover Flesh and Blood and do want to hold it, I know there's some folks to reach out to. Reach out to Alan Hale. He does the organized play for Flesh and Blood for Legend Story Studios, so reach out to him and maybe he can hook you guys up with the distributors. Honestly, I'm not sure. Maybe your local game stores already know the distributors and they're just like having a hard time getting product. I'm not really sure what the situation here is, but I do know, or rather I've heard rumors that more unlimited product is on the way. So maybe just wait until more unlimited product shows up. I'm afraid I can't be too much more of a help because I don't own a local game store. And ways to keep people engaged. I mean, events, man, if you can hold events, that'd be sweet. I know it's really hard with COVID and all that kind of stuff. So this is a very tricky time for card games in general. Maybe make some like little cheap budget decks to give away to new players. Once the Monarch starter decks come out, maybe, you know, promote those even more. Personally, I like bringing around multiple decks when I like bring my Flesh and Blood stuff, or rather I would do this for Magic and Forcible too. So if I ever, you know, sat down to play some games, if someone didn't have a deck, I can just be like, yo, do you want to borrow one of my decks? And then we can play games and we can like talk about it. So I would suggest all of that stuff. I'm sorry if I can't be more of a help on that one, but that one's a tricky one. But in the long run, I would think events with really sweet price support can actually get people coming back and more interested. I know I would be if people were like, oh, show up to the event and get a sweet cold foil. Yo, I'm in. That's really cool. Any tips for tuning decks you brew? This is kind of like a whole video, but generally repetition, man. Get the reps in, play a ton of games, find out what works and what doesn't work. Try new cards if you think they could be interesting in the build. Maybe take out cards that aren't performing well, take out underperforming cards. Then you can maybe even compare what you're doing to what other people are doing and see how the strategies line up. Compare your build to like some of the top tournament builds. But I always like, getting a lot of repetitions in and iterating on my decks. And then you can find out, some cards aren't really worth playing that you thought were good, and some cards that you didn't think were good are actually quite good. So that's basically how a lot of pro players do it too. Not saying that I'm a pro player, but that's how a lot of pro players do it. They just play a ton. Just play a ton and you kind of figure out what works. Also, playing with other people who are at your skill level or higher is super good. Even if you get crushed, playing with people better than you makes you better. Steel sharpens steel. So if you can play with really good people, you will get better, and you'll get better at evaluating cards and evaluating what is good and what is not so good. I really like your Dorinthia Blitz deck. Is the same strategy possible for constructed? Yes, and I also have a video of it on the channel, so just check that out. It is a Dorinthia classic constructed deck tech. I should have an image right here of the thumbnail. Just go find it. Maybe I'll put it in the description if I remember. Okay, this is the last question. It's a really long one, and it'll probably end up being its own video, but I wanted to mention it anyway. It says, what kind of upgrades would you recommend to the starter decks to boost the power levels a bit? If you could do $20, $50, and $100 upgrade options for a few of the starters, I think that would give interesting content and help give people an understanding of how to get the most out of each hero. I think this deserves its own video, and I'm definitely going to do something like this for the Monarch decks. I think it'll be the most useful to people once Monarch comes out, but generally speaking, heroes specializations tend to be quite good, and they tend to go in very well with their strategies. So for example, Dorinthia, both of her specializations are fantastic, and even some of the non-specialization cards are just super good. So like, for example, some of the cards that I'm going to be giving away today, we have something like Ironsong Devotion, which is not a super expensive card, but it's really, really good for her deck and pushing damage through. Or something like Glint the Quicksilver, which is a very, very good card, which just allows you to attack with your weapon a second time, or giving your weapon go against, you can attack with it another time. And cards like this really help your strategy. So I would say stuff like this, cards that really help flesh out your strategy more so than like really expensive one-shot cards. I would definitely get cards like this over cards like Enlightened Strike or really expensive legendaries first. So you can get like a competent deck first, and then you can kind of fill it out with like the really sweet spicy stuff. But yeah, I'll go over that in significantly more detail in the future in its own kind of video. I have a lot of videos planned for Flesh and Blood. And so finally, we are going to announce the winners of that giveaway. So the winner of the Dorinthia deck and the Reinhardt deck here is, I have it also printed on this paper. It is Cards and Knights TCG. I actually recognize the channel. I see you commenting a lot. So yeah, huge congratulations. I was very surprised when you popped up on the random, comment picker thing. So yeah, congratulations. Let me know your address. Either message me on Facebook, facebook.com/redzonerogue, or on Twitter, twitter.com/redzonerogue. Just send me a message request, message me your address, and I will ship these out within a week or two, especially when, when shipping goes down a little bit after the holidays. And the winner of the Bravo deck and the Katsu deck, including this first edition Welcome to Wraith Alpha Bravo, is Kenneth Howell. So also message me on Facebook or on Twitter with what your address is, and I will ship these out to you. Huge congratulations to the winners. We will have more giveaways in the future as the channel continues to grow. We've already gotten like a couple hundred new subs since I hit 4,000, so we're probably gonna hit 5,000 pretty quickly, and then 10,000, man, I got some sweet stuff for 10,000. I think y'all gonna love my 10,000 giveaway. It's not gonna be decks, it's gonna be some good shit. So yeah, if you like the video, then leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the Q&A. If you have more questions, ask them below, and I will just compile another list. If I get enough questions, I will make another Q&A video. This one's probably really long. This is probably like 40 minute video, 40 minute video, something like that. Once again, if you'd like to support me directly, please check out my Patreon. I appreciate all of the support so much. Even just, watching the videos and commenting means a lot to me. So thank you so much. Congratulations to the winners, and I'll see you next time for some more Flesh and Blood content. I'll see you later.